Look at that music.
Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen, Alex King, and Tom Wells here. Today is Friday, March the 29th, 2019. It's 8 a.m. in New York, 5 a.m. in Los Angeles, 12 noon in London, Sydney, Australia, 11 p.m. Wherever you are in the world, thank you for joining us for another episode of LOA Today, your daily dose of happy. And we are off to a happy and, as usual, silly mood, joking and laughing as we get ready to do the podcast. That's always a good sign. Don't you think, Alex? Because when we're joking and laughing, it's like things starting to pick up even before we get the podcast started, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, that's how we know they're in a good place. And, well, of course, Tom's always in a good place because just, you know, Tom wakes up in the morning early to do this, and as soon as he wakes up, boom, his eyes are open, and he's in a good place, right? Isn't that the way it is, Tom?
God, that sounds great.
Well, I tell you, I was doing some research. I was doing some research on neurochemicals. This is a really exciting topic, you can tell, right? Neurochemicals? That sounds so exciting.
Oh, yeah.
But it turns out it really is exciting. I mean, and we know something about them. I mean, we've talked about them. I think most people are at least aware of them. But I'm beginning to realize that we need to learn more about the specifics of them ourselves as lay people. Science is making a lot of progress. They're able to identify more and more of the specifics of what each of the different feel-good neurochemicals do, like, you know, dopamine and oxytocin and serotonin, the endorphins, and another one that I found that I guess there are like 7 or 8 broadly grouped ones that you can talk about, and one of those is called GABA, G-A-B-A. I was telling Alex about it because I was reading about it. It said, This is for her, and when I read you the indications of, you know, what kinds of symptoms can be related to it, you said those are all mine, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Apparently, I suffer from low GABA.
Yeah, I think I've taken it before.
Have you? Okay.
I'm pretty sure, because a friend of mine, I was at their house, and I think they gave me some because they thought I needed it that night or something. It was a long time ago.
Okay.
But
because Alex was saying that her psychiatrist had actually prescribed something at one point that sounded like it had GABA in it. So it sounds like they may already be on it. But I mean, I was reading the indications like anxiety, chronic stress, depression, difficulty concentrating, memory problems, muscle pain, headaches, insomnia, and other sleep problems. And Alex says, "Yep, that's me."
Yeah. Yeah.
And what's
the gift of Gab?
GABA, yeah. The gift of GABA. That's it. That's right.
Tom.
Well, I gotta look for some way to make it funny. Otherwise, why be alive?
Facts.
And according to this article that I found, it's very understandable why you really want to have medical advice to deal with it. Not that GABA is dangerous or anything, but apparently a lot of medications interact with it. So you really want somebody who knows what they're doing, you know, deciding, okay, how are you going to integrate it into what you're doing? Because it is important. I mean, it's basically a neural inhibitor. It's what's called the body's most important inhibitory neurotransmitter, which means it lowers the activity of neural cells in the brain. And the reason it's important is that's what lowers anxiety, it lowers stress, it creates a calmness. It's kind of like what you get when you meditate or when you engage in other kinds of activities. You just kind of slow the mind down. So you know that's pretty important. We know what the value of meditation is, right? You know, so when you look at this, you say, "Well, shoot, yeah, okay, that's pretty good stuff."
We know the value of medication.
Medication, yes,
medication.
All the meds.
Yeah. So, Walt, you said that we need to learn a whole lot about all these chemicals. Is that what the whole show's about today?
It can be. I was just making an observation. I was
I was
Maybe
just
some
kidding.
reading?
Yeah, I'm just kidding.
I mean, seriously, if you really want to, we can. I was just
Oh no,
noticing.
I didn't bring my physiology book.
Oh, okay.
Or what book do you need for that? You need the pharmacology book.
I have my med list if we need
Your med list is pretty long.
it's a doozy. It's double-sided, I'll tell you that.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
So how many things do you take a day? She blows her lips.
It's over 10, under 20, I can say that.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
And they're all for mood regulation? Or
No,
all
they all
kinds of things?
have
Yeah.
different things, yeah.
Yeah, wow.
If it makes you feel better, Alex, when Louise and I were consulting with somebody locally in our town because Louise is reached age 65, and of course here in the U.S. that means that she now has to switch over to Medicare. So we had to learn about all the
Yep.
stuff involved with all that. And there's a local expert who received some, I guess, state training on how to look at and understand the various things with Medicare. So we were talking with her, and she said, and one of the first things she did was to take Louise's medications and plug them into the system because that's part of how you calculate, what kind of a
Yeah.
insurance plan you need and all that. She said
Yeah.
that she had recently had another guy in there who had also turned 65. The guy had 17 medications to plug in. 17. So maybe that
Yeah,
makes you feel a
sounds
little
about
better.
me.
Yeah. Mhm.
And I am on Medicare, so I totally understand.
Yep. So, okay. I mean, yeah, we can talk about all kinds of stuff today. I was just fascinated by this, so I figured, I'll bring up the stuff that I'm interested in. But, I mean, Tom, you were talking about a dream you had. I mean, we're also talking about having questions and answers from the audience because that's what we always do. In fact, actually, we have one. Now that I see that, let me bring this in here. Aisling is asking, okay, this is one of the more out there questions, so be interesting to see what you guys have to say. Aisling asks, what are your thoughts on mermaids? And that is a serious question. So,
Well, I
Alex?
think Alex should answer it. I think Alex did answer it.
I love mermaids.
Do
Okay,
that
first
again,
of all,
Alex. Do that again. Flap your flippers. Flap your flippers. He loves mermaids.
That's great. What enthusiasm.
I love
Yeah.
mermaids.
Little side flippers. You must have loved the movie then, right? The Disney was that a Disney?
There's one, I mean.
Oh yeah, I know. There's been a few, huh?
And now there's a TV show about mermaids. Yeah.
Which, of
Do you
course,
think that actually exists?
she's actually reviewed the TV show because she does a podcast on spoiler alerts, and so I'm sure she's reviewed that one, right?
Oh, there's a
Yes.
TV show about it. Wow.
Yes, it's called Sirens. It's about mermaids in our current time and
Okay.
how they are coming out of the ocean because of all the trash that we're putting in. We're polluting the ocean, so they have nowhere to live. So they have to turn into human form and try to adapt to our environment and become humans. And I guess over time they end up becoming human.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of them walking around already.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm
But
saying.
as soon as they hit the water,
Yeah.
they turn back into mermaids. But it hurts. It's very painful to turn back into a mermaid. Because like the whole bone structure is different, so it's like restructuring your body. It's
Well, that archetype is really big in indigenous mythology. The archetype of the woman who comes from the ocean, and then she affects somebody who from the tribe on land, and then often the man goes back with her into the ocean. Yeah, there was a movie recently that was super popular about that man creature from the Amazon. Remember that one? That was, and then he takes the woman back with him. He's, a super popular movie about a year ago. I can't remember the name of it.
can't think of it.
Yeah, he's an alien-looking guy, and you know.
Yes, it won a lot of awards.
Yeah, it won a lot of
and
awards.
I saw it and I was like, oh God, really? And
But it was the same basic theme. It's just with a guy as the mermaid.
as a merman instead of a mermaid. Body of water.
Body of water. Well, you're
Yeah.
good.
Yeah,
Way to
I
go,
am.
Alex. Damn. But I think that's a universal theme. It's very powerful. Probably in the dream time, it's probably just a normal thing for these human-like creatures to be in the water, our consciousness to be in the water.
So
Right,
Alex,
right? Lots of stories that on other planets we were, that the first ones that came here were the dolphins. That they were the ones that came here, and then from them became what we call humans. I've heard that a bunch.
Dolphins are my favorite animal.
There you go.
So
I don't know how well that works.
Alex, tell us more about mermaids. First of all, why they're cool, and second of all, what should we understand about them? What's important to know?
That there's a difference between mermaids and sirens, and sirens are what we know mythologically as those allegedly beautiful women who lure us into the deep, deep ocean to drown men and all that stuff. Those aren't mermaids, but they're like cousins, so they get a bad rep.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I do know that the Greek men didn't like it very much. Ancient Greek, they had a lot of trouble with sirens. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't be a fan of drowning either, but
Yeah. Drowning.
Well, that's another archetypal symbol of being lured into your subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
I think,
Yeah.
I don't understand it totally or anything, but I can see how that's another archetype, right? If it's in the Odyssey, it's got to be an archetype.
Well, in a sense, we get lured into the subconscious every time we do a show because we're talking about the subconscious all the time. So we're constantly lured into the subconscious.
Yeah.
That's true.
And I see how women, for men, I've definitely been able to relate to that archetype most of my adult life. That beautiful women are like incredibly alluring. Mm-hmm. They lure me into a whole other state, right? Like a beautiful woman just like takes me into a completely other world of, and then I can't control anything. I have to lash me to the mast. Seriously, it's true. That archetype totally makes sense.
Tom is oversharing. It's okay though.
That was what my dream was about today. Oversharing.
Hey, Sing,
God!
I think you touched on an important topic here. I didn't know that you were doing that, but congratulations.
Yeah.
We were bringing out Tom's not so happy subconscious side. Actually, I guess it is happy in a sense.
That's pretty happy. Yeah, it's just not so controllable, and it's one that I think all of us are subject to in relationships. Being allured into the relationship so that we can do the work on ourselves, the alchemical work that needs to take place.
Mm-hmm.
I just had it happen to me in a relationship.
I
was lured in by beauty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was all her fault.
No. It's just all part of the bigger archetypal beauty of it all.
Is that what it is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, that's more reasonable, I would say. We also have a second question, by the way. This one comes from Jason.
Okay.
Jason asks, what are your thoughts on psychics? How do you know who are fake and who are the actual psychics?
It's simple. When you walk into a place or talk to someone and they tell you something that there's no possible way they could know that about you, I say they're legit. Okay. But anything you can Google,
I get an intuitive hit.
Yeah.
My intuition tells me, is this the real deal or not?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I know, but I feel like I know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They start saying things, and I go, this person is definitely plugged in to the psychic realm. Haven't you experienced it? Yeah.
Yeah, I have.
Mm-hmm.
Psychics are interesting people because they are capable of expressing certainty in a realm of uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
I mean,
and I'm knowing things that are you could only really know by being plugged into the dream time. It seems like of what's happening in that other realm, in those other realms.
well, we've certainly learned a lot. We've been told a lot by people with psychic claims, psychic ability. And science has been able to document some of the psychic phenomena.
Right.
There's a lot of it that they've been able to document. I think one of the more interesting ones is I can't remember what the exact study is, but the monkeys that were on various places around the world and they were all able to focus in on the same thing at the same time. Have you
What?
ever studied?
Psychic monkeys?
Yeah.
Yeah, is that what we're
Psychic
doing
monkeys.
now?
There was a study that was done like that. I don't remember what kind of monkey it was, but it was a monkey that was indigenous to a number of different places around the world, and they had researchers who were in each of the different places where these monkeys were, and then they simultaneously did something. I don't remember what. They created some sort of stimulus, and all the monkeys reacted at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
There's a whole lot of experiments that are done by people that are studying paranormal phenomenon, like the what's the big institute, the IONS Institute,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of those, and a lot of universities go out and look for psychics. They recruit psychics to be part of their experiments constantly.
Mm-hmm.
That's happening more and more. It's in so many of the books I read. And so a lot of scientists really, really do know that psychics exist because they recruit them for their studies. And the government, a lot, and the Defense Department and stuff has used psychics to do all this remote viewing and things like that so they can go right into the room of a so-called enemy and see exactly what's going on and listen in on their conversations and see actual facilities that are being built in other countries and go right down into the detail of everything going on. And those are psychics, But it's a very common phenomenon.
So you're saying the government
More-
believes in psychics?
Oh yeah, big time. And I think all of us have psychic powers. I think it's one of just those latent things that, because we've been so dumbed down over so many centuries by our rational thinking, we've, especially the last 300 or 400 years, we've totally been dumbed down. We've lost our ability to be in these other realms, but we naturally live in those other realms. So we have to do it in our dreams and things, but it's really possible in our waking state.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
We just don't. Yeah, right on.
Mm-hmm. Word.
That's
Word.
interesting because I appreciate and value the emotional now much more than I used to, and I'm becoming more and more appreciative of things like psychic phenomena, being able to tap into the inside and so forth. I think there's a lot to that, but I also think there's value to the reason and logic part. I mean, we did have a lot of great things happen because of reason and logic. So I don't want to throw it out the window.
I wasn't actually saying reason and logic isn't valuable.
Okay. Well, you said it dumbed us
I'm
down.
just saying.
That's why I was reacting.
Well,
You said-
dumbing down in the sense of like, if we've lost our ability to be intuitive and psychic, I think we've really sacrificed the hugest part of our humanness.
But have we?
I think so. I'm just telling you how I feel.
But I mean, have we actually lost it? Is what I'm asking.
Oh, no, it's there. It's just that I think we've lost the ability. It's like they say, the pineal gland has been, rendered inactive because of our lack of use of it. But it actually is the gland that, if we bring it alive, allow it to come alive. Just like Kundalini energy that lives in the base of our spine, but for very few Westerners know that if you bring Kundalini energy up your spine, you activate your pineal gland and all kinds of aspects of your psychic intuitive self. So it's just that we've forgotten how to do all that. We've lost touch with it.
Have you remembered?
I'm remembering. I'm in the process of doing everything I can to come alive as a real human being. 'Cause that's what I think a real human being is a balance between logic and intuition. Yeah, but we need an equal or greater amount of that ability to live in multiple realms at once in the dream time through our psychic powers, but we don't cultivate them and don't recognize them.
Have you had success in your to
Mm-hmm.
awaken yourself in that way?
Mm-hmm. More and more. Yeah.
Tell us.
Yeah, it feels really good. It feels really healthy. Yeah.
Tell us a
More
cool
and more
story.
trying to listen. Huh?
Tell us a cool story.
Well, I don't know if I told you before, but the story when I got the shamanic item from Guatemala that a friend of mine gave me because they knew I was into shamanism.
Mm-hmm.
So they gave me this 2-foot long stick, like it's like a rain stick, but it's all carved on the outside. It's actually made out of pottery, but with the heads of eagles and all kinds of things going, Mayan symbols on it, just like totally cluttering the entire thing. So it's about 3 or 4 inches wide with all these faces and figures on it. And I was a little concerned because I wasn't sure if it was a souvenir from a souvenir shop in Guatemala or if it was an actual shamanic item that could have been used in rituals. And I didn't know if it had what kind of powers it might have in it. So I took it home reluctantly and I put it in my garage. I said, I'm not bringing this in the house until I sit with it for a while and see how I feel in my intuitive self about it. And after a while, I said, well, I think I'll bring it in. It was like 3 or 4 days. So I set it on an altar I had downstairs rather than taking it to the altar I had upstairs where I was doing my ceremony every day. And that night, the day I brought it in, I go to sleep, and in the middle of the night, I begin to float up out of my bed. And all the blankets are hanging off me, and I'm floating up towards the ceiling, and I'm saying to myself, oh my God, I'm finally having an actual, out-of-body experience. And because I've always wanted that, I've heard...
Or at least an out-of-bed experience. It may not have been out of body, but it was out of bed anyway.
Yeah, which is often what an out-of-body experience is. At least you're out of the bed. In fact, when you learn to go out of your body, that's the first thing you do is you practice not going very far from your bed so you can immediately get back in your body. And you do that for several weeks before you start traveling, because you don't want to get stuck out of your body in some other universe, It's kind of could be.
Oh, I can't get back.
Yeah, that happens to people. I don't want to go through that. So anyway, it turns me and it floats me towards the stairs and out my door, and I'm way up high, like 6, 8 feet up in the air, and I've come to the head of the stairs. My feet are facing downstairs, and my stairs don't look quite the same. Instead of going down and jogging, the stairs just go straight down. The second I get to the top of the stairs, I realize, oh, it's that item down there. That thing is causing all this. So then the second I say that, I'm back in my bed, and I'm laying there, and I'm still in this semi-dream state, this lucid dreaming state. And there's this thing next to my bed where my nightstand usually is, and it's this great big cylindrical shaped thing that looks like it would be under the ocean somewhere and it comes up and it comes up in a shape like this, a big base, and it's just nondescript, but at the top it's open like if you had a head, a body without the head, and it's just there's an open cavity at the neck, and that's what it looks like, and it's breathing, and at the same time that's happening, I feel something in my bed down at my feet that's pushing against my feet, like as if you had a dog down there in the bed, which I've had before, and the dog is leaning against my feet, like a heavier dog, and I can feel it against my feet, and on the roof of my condo, I can hear all this activity up there, something like on the roof. And I'm going, this is definitely like one of those psychic experiences. This is definitely an alien kind of weird thing. And this thing next to my bed starts saying to me, it says, if you ever need me, it says there's a cube inside of you. And I said, what? There's a what inside of me? And I said, it says there's a cube inside of you. And I said, okay, and it says, if you ever need me, that's where you'll find me. And I said, okay. And then all of a sudden, everything began to dissipate, and I could feel the thing at my against my leg go away, and this thing next to me was gone, and all of a sudden the sound on the roof, was less and less and less until it was completely gone. And then it's kind of like a breeze swept through the room, and then I opened my eyes, and then I'm laying there going, okay, that was one of those experiences. But ever since then, I got up the next morning, I went on the internet immediately and started looking up cube, and of course cube, it turns out to be one of the primordial symbols of sacred geometry, which is like at the center. That's just the center of sacred geometry. But I also thought maybe it said there's a tube inside. It looked like a tube, kind of like like it reminded me of breath. That's what I thought of. And then I've read a lot of things since then and thought about it. That your whole breathing column is like a tube, and when you fully occupy that breathing column, that is your key to going into the psychic realm, is to go through your breath. That prana takes us into that realm. So I thought, well, maybe it was telling me both, because anyway, I could go on and on. Then I found a book all about the cube that turns out to be this ancient game that nobody knows where it came from. And when you play this game, you find out all kinds of things about yourself. So I ordered the book from Amazon, and it was trippy. I used it for a while with friends and things and learned a lot about myself. So I don't know. Anyway, yeah. So I had an experience, and I would like to have a lot more of that.
Yeah.
It's a great way to learn.
I love the way you ended that. You tell this long, detailed story that had amazing impact on you, and then you said, "I don't know."
Well, I don't. That's the way a lot of dreams are. That's the way a lot of dreams are. You have the dream, and it's like, I don't know, what was that about?
Yeah.
Well, I guess my point is
but I know one thing.
That didn't seem to you like it was fake psychic behavior. That felt real, is what my point is.
Yeah, and I've had a couple of others of those, and definitely when I've done sacred plant ceremony on ayahuasca and different things like that, I have similar experiences. So I feel like that realm is very real, and we have negated it to the point that we are missing the vast amount of our knowing and our learning and our ability to communicate with each other in realms beyond the push and pull of this very material-seeming world where we get stuck in so many ways.
Bronwyn said to say to you, "Wow, thank you for your story. She really liked it a lot." So, thank you for
good.
Bronwyn.
Good. I don't want to overdo it with all my stuff. That's what my dream was about. That's what my dream was about this morning, right before I started the show. It was like
about the cube.
No, it was a kick the onion game, where there was two concentric circles of yellow. Yeah, there was two concentric circles of yellow onions, and they were placed about 3 foot apart. And I was telling everybody how to play the game, and what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to kick the onions until they begin to spin like tops. So I was trying to show everybody, and and I was getting them spinning like really fast, but I realized that I was so dominating the game, spinning these multi-layered objects, of understanding these multi-layered objects and spinning them into these, patterns that I was not letting anybody else play. I was dominating by my just doing it too much. And then I realized that's what I do in conversations. I dominate with my intellect, trying to talk about so many psychic things at once that it just is overwhelming to other people. So they're not even playing in the game with me. I'm just doing it all.
So thank you for tuning in to the Tom Wells Show.
See? It's me dominating. And that's what I did as a kid. That was so cool, because as a kid, if I wasn't dominating the board game, the Monopoly game or whatever, I literally upset the whole game. And all the other kids went, "Tom, why didn't you win the game?" And I said, I wasn't winning.
Well, you should have explained that it's called Monopoly for a reason.
Right?
Yeah. Monopolize the game, right? But I even did it to Candyland.
Oh, that's funny.
Or a Clue, trying to get a clue.
Games.
Yeah, we played a lot of board games.
Oh, yeah. Well, when there's no internet, you have to do other things to entertain yourself.
Yeah,
so.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah, but they revamped them when I was a kid, so like we thought they were new. So
Oh yeah,
to
right.
hear you guys talk about them, I'm like, oh, they were there out back then. That's crazy.
Well, if you want to really be blown away, Monopoly came out during the Great Depression. Yeah, it really did. Monopoly was invented during the Great Depression.
That's disrespectful.
I don't know. I think actually it kind of makes sense when you think about it, because there was massive depression going on,
disrespectful.
and people thought that
Everybody wanted to figure out how they're going to make a buck. Huh?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you got to sell railroads and buy railroads and lots of properties and hotels. And
Monopolize
Don't
those
go to jail.
railroads. Funny thing is that you could buy houses and hotels to put onto the streets, but you couldn't buy anything to put onto the railroads. So, like,
Right.
you're done.
yeah, yeah.
Crazy. Well, I don't know about you, Alex. I'm not sure that I can top Tom's story about psychic. I mean, I've had certain experiences with psychic behavior, but nothing even close to Tom's story.
Come on, you can spin one of these onions. Spin an onion, Walt.
I was telling Alex.
Let me show you how to do it.
Let me show you.
That's what spinning the onion is when you can tell a story that has multi-layers.
Well,
Tom, you're killing me today.
See?
I can't Tom today. I can't.
But what we're actually doing is we're working on your anxiety. We figure if we just get you laughing so hard that you fall out of your chair, then you won't have any more anxiety. That's the idea behind all this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I never see any anxiety in you, Alex. I mean, I don't know where it all comes from.
Well, that's because I'm in my safe space and I'm hanging out with you guys. So
Yeah,
it's totally
that's
fine.
great. That's great.
Yeah.
And then some other thing turns on when you get out of the safe space.
Yeah, yeah. A
Think
whole
of
other
her.
monster takes over.
Think of her as a multi-layered onion.
I do.
You just keep pulling the
spin
layers
out of
off and you find
She's a purple onion.
stuff. Purple onion.
Yeah, I am.
Look at her shirt. Yeah.
I was telling Alex a story the other day, and it's nowhere near the kind of story you were telling, Tom. But there was one time when I was, I don't know, shortly after Louise and I married, like a few years after. So that'd be like the mid to early 2000s. And I was asleep. We were both asleep. It was perhaps 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was in that kind of level 1 REM level sleep. So I was in dream level sleep. I wasn't awake. I wasn't in the deep sleep. I was in that kind of mid range there. And all of a sudden, I had this experience of this face or this head coming in closer and closer and closer to my face. So it was like touching my nose practically. Which in and of itself is kind of intimidating, because you got this thing coming at you in your mind. And then when it got really close to my nose, it said, "Hello!" And I almost jumped out of the bed and said, "What the hell was that?"
Yeah.
And Louise woke up and says, "What? And I said, "What the hell was that?" She says, "What? What are you talking about?"
That's a very common experience. A lot of people have that experience.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Harvard psychiatrist who studied he studied out of, what do you call it? When abductions, alien abductions, and he's a very prestigious Harvard scientist, and he studied it for years and years. He recently died, and he had a whole team of graduate students who worked with him, and they said one thing he found was that these other beings in these other realms, he said, they're so close to you that it's shocking when you realize, like there's aliens that are right here, like this close to us. I mean, and a lot of people in psychic experiences and out of body and lucid dreaming have these beings that come right up there to their face like that. That's very common. I don't know why it is, but that's what I've been learning about that anyway.
Well, it's because we're in different realms, so it's like we're bumping into each other, but we're not touching each other because we're
Right, but that's how close everything actually is.
Yeah.
I mean, they say it's actually all inside of us. It's actually all the realms, all these multi-layered realms are inside of us.
Yeah.
That's hard to figure that one out too, but I can believe it.
Well, I had an experience with when my great aunt passed away. I was in the midst of my insomnia, and it was like 2:00 in the morning, and Rusty started barking and barking and barking and barking. And I'm like, what are you barking at? And so I go into the living room, and I'm looking, and I don't see anything, but he's barking and barking and barking. And then I just felt this presence, and it was sadness, but it was also love at the same time. So I was like, oh no, somebody died. And then not even 5 seconds later, my phone rings, and it's my uncle, and he's like, Aunt had passed away. And I was like, yeah, I know. And he was like, how'd you know? And I was like, because she's here. And he was like, what?
Yeah.
But yeah, I have stuff like that happen to me all the time.
Yeah.
Wow.
My friend had her good friend that she always would hang out with. He lived across the street from her in Maryland, and he and his little daughter were really good friends of my friend and her little daughter. And one night, my friend is having a dream, and she imagines that a house is on fire, and it's totally a terrifying dream. And she wakes up at about 2 hours later and goes to her window, and the house across the street where he lives with his little daughter is totally engulfed in flames. And fire trucks are out there, and he and his daughter pass away in the fire. And she goes into hysteria and incredible, grief. And later that evening, she's in bed grieving, and he comes to her. The guy comes to her foot of her bed and tells her everything is fine, and that they're in a real great place and not to worry. And so she's had a lot of experiences like that.
Yeah.
And a lot of them with other beings that are from other realms that come into her room and stuff and do interesting things. It's like, hey, wow.
Do you guys agree that if a psychic experience happens to you, you tend to believe that it was real as opposed to somebody else who you're not really sure whether or not they're actually telling you something psychic? I ask that because that's my feeling. If it happens to me and it doesn't seem like there's anything physical that I can tie to it, like somebody set up a little game for me to experience or something like that. As long as I believe that it actually did happen, then I tend to believe, yeah, that was a real psychic experience. Whereas if somebody else tells me about it, there's a little bit of skepticism for me that goes in there. Like, okay, yeah, so how do I know what you're saying is true?
I believe both.
I believe both too. Yeah, the skepticism is only there till I listen to the person long enough to confirm that, or sometimes I only have to hear them talk for one sentence and I know they're a real psychic. It's just like there's something about their authenticity just rings so true to me that I don't, and usually though I hear more than one sentence, but I hear them talk about some particular aspects, say something about this going on with the world or the government or their life or somebody else's life who's asking them a question, and it doesn't take long for me to pick up on the fact that this person is plugged in, man. They're definitely connected to other realms, and I trust where they're coming from. But yeah, I prefer it to be my own real direct experience, and without that, it is theoretical in a lot of ways, and I don't like to just talk theory in that realm, really. Prefer to have direct experience.
Do you agree, Alex? You think the experience is the more important one?
I feel the opposite. I feel like visiting the psychic is better because they've been dealing with it longer and they can explain to you what things mean as opposed to experiencing it yourself and just going, what the heck was that? So I need explanation. I need to know, Grammy, why are you here? Why are we talking about this? Things like that.
So just the fact that your grandmother shows up, that's not enough. You got to know more before you're even willing to accept the experience.
I got to know why she's here and what I need to learn from this. And, because obviously you've been visiting for 3 nights now. So, like, what are you trying to tell me? And a psychic can, break that down for you.
Okay. So it's almost not even valuable for you if the experience happens and you don't know why it happened.
Well, if you're not tapped in. If you're not tapped in, then you don't understand what's going on.
That's
It's
like
happening
dreams.
to you. Yeah.
Like they say with dreams, if you don't work with your dreams and consistently write them down and consistently ask to remember them and make an effort to remember them, then you won't be able to go back in your dream journal and start to pick out themes and start to see, this thing keeps showing up. What is this about? And then you get these intuitive hunches, or maybe your logic tells you, this has got to be my attachment to, being dominating in conversations or something. And you start seeing it. I don't want to keep focusing on that because then it becomes like law of attraction brings it along.
Right.
But yeah, dreams it's all a dream. That's the funny part that we don't get. It's so funny how we've assigned to this reality, but I see, of course, why we do, because it seems like we're really living in completely different realities.
Let's talk about that for a second. The idea that reality is a dream. Because that alone, like you say, that's a pretty powerful dream. That's a dream that's so powerful. The average person will tell you, well, reality is just real. You got to be real.
Right. Yeah. Of course we do. Yeah. Because that's the way we were raised, too. And all those around us and all the news media, our teachers and parents and everything were saying the same thing, unless we were blessed to have a psychic parent, who knew there was other realms. But I didn't.
I mean, when you think about reality, Alyx, do you actually think about it in terms of just being real, or do you think about it in terms of, this is just a dream?
I think about it as being just another stop on this crazy train that we're on. Like there's more to this, obviously, after. So I'm not even concerned about the here and now.
So when you're interacting with reality, it doesn't. I don't know how to even compare this, but for me, when I'm interacting with reality, it just feels like reality. I don't have any sense in my mind that this is all a dream. It just feels real.
Yeah.
This is reality.
Yeah.
I'm just dealing with reality. This is the way it is. This is the way stuff is, and that's the way it feels to me. You're saying no. When you interact with it, you feel it like it's a dream.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and
that's the key understanding of law of attraction in my mind. That's how you can understand projection. If your things are showing up in your reality, like whatever it is, a particular person, lack of money, enough money, health, lack of health, the more and more I see that as I'm creating that, and it's my projected reality, it's my hologram. It's like the star deck. What is it on the Starship Enterprise? The holodeck.
Holodeck.
I mean, it's like, yeah. If I'm not creating you guys, then how is it happening? I mean, is it? Of course, it could be happening multiple ways, and maybe it is. But it seems like the lesson to me comes from my ability to see it as a dream, and to take the messages from it as symbolic to my personal expansion. Like I didn't create Walt and Alyx by accident. These are the perfect creations for me to learn exactly what I need to learn right now during this hour. And if I can open to it in that way, then I see it as a waking dream. It's full of symbolism. It's full of possibility.
I just wanted to...
Robert...
before you...
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll let you continue in a second. I just want to respond. Aisling said something, or Aisling, I'm not sure how to pronounce her name, but and I know she gave me a lesson in it before, and I don't remember what the answer was. But she posted a few minutes ago, can I join you? And yes, if you want to join us on the Blue Jeans platform, please do. We'd love to have you come on. Feel free to just come on and talk with us. We'll be glad to have you share whatever questions or comments you want to share. So I just want to make sure I acknowledge that. I clicked the like so that she could see that I saw it. But yeah, feel free to jump on. So go ahead, finish what you were going to say there, Tom.
I was just going to say that if you want to learn about dreams, a good guy, in my opinion, to learn from is Robert Moss, Moss, Robert Moss. And he's written a whole lot on dreams. I mean, it's his whole thing. He's sort of like a modern-day psychic from Australia who had very powerful experiences as a child because he got deathly ill, which is where a lot of shaman, their powers come when they become deathly ill as children. So he definitely, I think, is a shaman. And he said, he teaches in his dream books about how you can cultivate the ability to see your waking hours as a dream and begin to see symbolism everywhere. You can start to see it, you're out on a walk, you go out to do errands, or you're having friends over for dinner, whatever. You can begin to see that it's a dream full of symbolism, teaching you constantly about that greater understanding of who you are as an infinite being, which is really, to me, the whole game we're playing. If I can't be in the way of seeing myself as an infinite being, then I feel like I'm kind of just stuck in a one-dimensional or a limited reality.
Well, let me ask a question. This is something that has been explored by a number of different writers and theologians and spiritual gurus and so forth over the years. The idea that we all don't live in one universe. We live in 7 or 8 billion universes with 7 or 8 billion people. Everyone has their own little world that they live in. But the worlds touch on each other and they overlap to some degree. So with that concept in mind, if I invented you and you invented me and our experiences are in some way touching, well, first of all, it seems like in many of those cases that if you have an experience and I'm in the same vicinity, it feels like it was my experience. So whose experience is it? If this is all a dream state, to what degree is that dream actually somebody else's dream that's kind of touching your dream? And if it's somebody else's dream that's touching your dream, then what happened to the boundary between the worlds?
Those are all good questions, and they all are questions I'm asking a lot. But I think we learn those answers as we live in the different realms through our direct experience.
Mm-hmm.
You start rather than it being theory, you start seeing, how much your experience is affected by others' experiences and how that works. But ultimately, I think we're all one being on some level. We're all like one conscious entity that you could call the divine or God or spirit or whatever you want to call it. But somehow we're playing a game with ourselves. And it's a pretty damn serious game when it comes to some of the ways we play. In the world of contrast, we play these horrible games. That's the part I don't understand. Why would we play games of war and death and torture and hatred? It's like, what? That's absurd.
Yeah.
If we're a divine being, but if it really doesn't matter somehow, then and it's all an illusion, then somehow maybe it does make sense as a giant learning experience. This 3D realm here that we're in seems to be a massive schoolroom. A huge place for learning.
Well, we could make the argument that it's about contrast, right? Because that's what you're describing. You're talking about extreme contrast, where people are engaging in really, really horrific stuff. But it's still contrast, and contrast is all about growing. So if you engage in really horrific stuff, in theory anyway, you grow on a terrific scale. You grow in a humongous way. Yeah. So maybe that's really what it's all about.
I think it could be. That's what the book I just read, Talking with Angels, that was kind of the message of the whole book. When these angels talked to these 4 women right before the Holocaust, and 3 of them ended up dying in the concentration camps. But in a way, what they were telling them during that whole book was preparing them very well for for their death. And the hugest lesson was the angels were trying to teach them death doesn't exist. And that they're actually living for a much higher reason than to be concerned about passing out of their body. Because they're an infinite being, and they actually are here to step into their infinite beingness. That's why they're in this form at all.
What's ironic about that is the idea of living for a higher purpose, because over time I've come to understand that higher means higher vibration. So you go into lower vibration in order to live for a higher vibration purpose. And on the surface that sounds contradictory, but on the other hand, as it has been explained to us, that's how we create more higher vibration, by having that lower vibration. Or as Cindy likes to say, as within, so without, the Hermetic principle.
Yeah.
Very strange stuff.
And I'm not sure it really is a lower vibration. I think it's actually just, I don't understand the confusion part of it. Yeah, like why we don't know I guess you could call that a lower vibration. Why would we be confused about who we are? Why would we have to sort of like relearn it if, like Abraham said, the second you pass, you know everything about your entire experience here, and you see the infiniteness of the whole thing and how you're a divine being. And that's not what a lot of other traditions say. A lot of other traditions say, well, no, you carry with you all the lack of all your ignorance as well as all your knowledge, and then you continue to grow and learn, in the other realms until you decide to incarnate again. I don't know, I really don't know how it all works, but it's a big game.
You talked about the part that was confusing to you, and I certainly share a lot of that confusion myself. I mean, I don't really understand why somebody wants to live a horrific life, why someone would choose that, but apparently people do. I mean, it's pretty obvious that people do. It happens all the time.
Even I do. I mean, I suffer. I think all three of us suffer with our own horrific aspects of our life, that we'd rather not be going through. But why would we have chosen any of that?
Right.
Well, that kind of touches on where I was going to go with it, because I've gotten to the point now, after a lot of self-work, a lot of it done through the podcast, I've gotten to the point where I don't really think of anything that I'm going through as suffering anymore, which I'm glad of. I mean, some of it can be a struggle at times, but very rarely do I get into a suffering mode anymore.
Yeah.
That
They're
suffering
lessons.
mode. Yeah. Well, the suffering mode I associate that with depression. Being really, really deeply depressed. And I have been there in the past, but not so much anymore. Even if I find myself in that place, it doesn't last very long. So I guess what I'm leading up to is perhaps the purpose of all that contrast is to help us to, in just straight Abraham terms, to understand I don't want that negative. This is what I prefer, that's what I don't prefer. It may be just nothing more than that. It may be just as simple as that. I prefer this, I don't prefer that. Understanding what we prefer. That actually may be a lot bigger than we give credit to it for, because so many people pick what they don't prefer. And I was one of those for such a long time. I kept picking what I didn't prefer. I didn't realize I was doing that. But nevertheless, that's what I kept doing. And I still do it to some extent. There are many, many times I still find myself focusing my attention on what I don't prefer. I'm doing it less and less. But I still find myself doing that. So I'm wondering, yes, you probably do get a lot of growth if you go deep into the contrast. But the question I'm asking is, do you really need a lot of growth? Why is it so important to grow so quickly? I mean, it's not like we're beings who only last for 80 years and then we disappear forever. We are eternal beings.
That's a good question.
We are eternal beings. Why is it so important to experience massive amounts of contrast? And I'm not so sure that it is.
Well, Abraham said that we're here for three reasons, and we're here for joy, freedom, and growth. Expansion, they called it. And they said the biggest mistake human beings make is they put number one as growth. So they think that everything is about how much you're growing and expanding. And they said the actual number one is joy. Then comes freedom. Then comes expansion. And they said because you need to realize that you're mainly here for joy, because that's what you really are. You are joy. And I believe that. And yet that's the hardest one for me to accept. I'm so addicted to the expansion and the growth, I think, that I don't understand how to chill, like you said, and just be happy and free. That's such a beautiful thing, just to be happy and free. And so much I judge myself, well, that's not enough. It's not enough just to be happy and free. And be simple. I always have to have multi-layered onions that I'm peeling and spinning and everything, trying to create all this, oh, look at this,
I love that, concentric onions. What do you think, Alyx? Do you believe that growth is important? How important? Do you think joy is more important? What do you think?
Do I think growth? So what do I think about growth and joy? I think they come in a combined package. So I think as we're growing, we're learning to experience joy, and also with contrast, you can't have contrast without creating joy. Like, if you think about it, if you don't go through a depression, you don't know what it's like to be happy, because you don't have that lack. You don't know the opposite. So I don't know. That's how I feel.
So how deep is deep? How deep do you have to go?
I think it's different for everyone. Some people can go deep as a puddle. Some people go deep as the ocean. You never know.
Well, all I know is if I step into a puddle, I want to make sure it's a puddle and that I'm not actually falling into an ocean. That to me is an important distinction. Right? I mean, it's
like you don't find out until the end. So.
And vice versa too. If I'm diving into an ocean head first, I want to make sure it's not a puddle. That'll hurt.
Yep, that's true.
So
and that's how most accidents happen in the swimming pool.
Yes.
By diving in head first.
Diving into the too shallow of water. The more
Yep.
serious accidents. So be careful there.
Yep.
Walt. Watch those puddles when you're out on a walk or something.
I think I'll stick to diving in feet first. It's safer.
Or just step into it. Don't dive. Just step into it.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And one way I've heard it described by Abraham is that if you you really want something, you have a preference, and so you finally get your preference, then the next thing that naturally happens to you as a human being is you get an impulse from source to go for the next thing, the next preference.
Right.
And when you get the impulse from source to go for the next preference, because you already made your 100,000 you really wanted to make, now you say, God, I'd really like to have another 100,000. But then that immediately stirs contrast as to how you're going to get the next 100. And then you're back in the dilemma of the contrast until you get to the place where you attract the next 100,000 in, and then again you're going to do it over and over again. So there'll always be the contrast will get stirred up. So like Abraham said, you never get to the place where you're finally content. There's no such thing. It's getting to the place where you're finally content. Mm-hmm. But I believe there is such a thing, like you're saying, of being able to relax into the joy and bask in it. Mm-hmm. Right? Like when I do meditation, I just bask in joy. Mm-hmm. That's what I like about meditation. It's a basking time. And sometimes I don't want it to stop because it feels so good. Mm-hmm. I don't want to get on with my day.
I hear you. Yeah. Well, we've only got a couple minutes left, and I got to get our announcements in. So, if you're not yet a subscriber, please become one. That's how you get all the episodes coming right to your smartphone. It's really easy to do. Go to the homepage of our website, lawaytoday.net. You'll find that right at the top of the page is a link that is created especially for your device. You just click that link, follow the steps, and like that, you'll be a subscriber automatically. And then once you're a subscriber, make sure that you're listening to all the episodes. And as you listen, share the fact that you're listening on social media, because that's how more and more people find out about it. So that's our announcement for the day. Become a subscriber and then subscribe and share. And Tom, I always like to give the life coaches an opportunity to tell people how to reach them. How does somebody reach out to you as a life coach?
You can go to my website, which is youarejoy, youarejoy.com, and you can sign up for a free half hour or an hour of coaching with me on there. And then from there, we can decide if you want to do any more. No pressure whatsoever, just a chance for you to experience some coaching with me by going to my website and looking for the free coaching session.
All right. And Alyx, anything new on Spoiler Alert? Anything that people should be tuning into?
definite news about Grey's Anatomy and Walking Dead and cancellations and new shows.
So always stuff going on. All right, good.
Yep.
Well, with that in mind, I'll say thank you to you guys. You guys make this always a whole lot of fun. Thanks to our live stream audience. Thanks to our podcast listeners as well. And we will see you all next time here on LOA Today.
I'm sorry our friend couldn't join us either.
Yeah, well, she'll come on one of these times. That's all right. Goodbye, everybody.